Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Brett Francis, author of Not Broken, How to Overcome Mental Health Challenges and Unlock Your Full Potential. Brett, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Paul.
Are you ready to get started?
Of course I am. Very excited to be here.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
You know, when I was writing my book, I heard a lot of persistence is the key, don't set the manuscript down. But I would actually, although that was helpful, I would actually give another piece of advice that I learned on my own, having anxiety and being a little OCD or a lot OCD. The biggest advice I would give to somebody who's currently writing their book, especially a first-time author, is don't take it everywhere with you. Like, give yourself breathing room and be somewhat relaxed. Like, I don't mean not committed to it, but be a little bit relaxed about it, because when you're putting yourself under all this pressure, things aren't as organic. So you don't have your best ideas. You don't have, the easiest flow of things when you are pushing yourself too hard. So there needs to be a natural flow of things. Even meeting deadlines, I think that you can still, give yourself a little bit of flow, and don't do what I did, which is carry your manuscript around with you every single place, and, that you went everywhere for about a year and a half.
Well, I think that's great advice, and especially kind of taking that break and having that balance, because it's difficult, especially when it's your first book. It's like your baby, right? I mean, you want to take it everywhere you go with it.
Absolutely, and it's hard because you're so passionate about it that you just want to, really put everything that you have into it. But sometimes when you give everything that you have, it just drains you. So you need to find a balance between that creativity and focus, right, to where you can have both, and you're not sucking yourself dry of one or the other.
Absolutely. And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think the hardest part about getting published, and one thing that I had to learn is, yes, I have a story to tell, but when you're not writing the book, I mean, yes, you're writing it for you, of course, but your ultimate goal with the book is for it to be a bestseller, for it to sell well. So you're essentially writing the book for other people. And so a lot of what I learned, and the hardest part for me, was getting out of sometimes my own set ways. So, working with my second book now and literary agents and talking to publishers, it's really, they want you to be flexible. So if you say, I have A, B, C, D, and E to say, they say, okay, well, could you say H and Z and Q? So it's really, and it's not changing your story. It's just about the way that you, deliver the message. So being flexible is probably one of the biggest struggles that I ran into initially, and also that I've heard other people run into, is not being flexible, because if a publisher wants to say, okay, well, this is a great story, but can we, change things up here or there, saying yes to them is probably one of the best things you can do, because they're also the experts. People who have written books, the literary agents, publishers who have been in this world for so long, and who spend full time on this, and who live in this world, are the ones that are going to know what's going to make you the best and the most successful author that you can be. So really keeping an open mind. And initially that was pretty hard for me, because I had a very passionate and very traumatic initially, and I poured too much of my heart into it, where I was almost so stuck to tell certain parts of my story that I wouldn't move off of some of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's difficult, because, it's your project, you're passionate about it, and the last thing you want to do is kind of give up some of that control to somebody else.
Exactly. But I think that me, in the end, giving up some of that control to even my editor, and another person who reviewed the book. Giving up a little bit of that control to say, okay, it doesn't have to be 100% everything what I want, because the one's written a book before, the other one is a professional editor to best-selling authors, and, they know what they're doing, so maybe I should listen.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Well, initially, it didn't start out as a marketing strategy. I worked with a lot of the local mental health organizations, all across Canada and the U.S., and I wanted to help them raise money, and I also wanted to reach the people that they were reaching, because people are coming to them for help, and I wanted to be able to, possibly help those people in their struggles. And so I went to, the mental health organizations, the learning disabilities and cognitive disability organizations, and I said, hey, I'm interested in helping you raise money, and also getting my message out there, and helping people understand that they're not alone and they're not broken, hence the title of the book. And so I said, if I give it to you for this price, I'll let you sell it, for, up to this price or whatever, kind of maxing out a certain amount, and it'll help you raise money to increase, awareness in your own organization. And so the mental health organizations, a lot of them really said, oh, yeah, let's do that. And they raised, hundreds of thousands of dollars for their organization, while I was, still being able to sell them my book, and still, being able to provide other people with the knowledge and my experience. And so I was all around happy. And it turned out to be a wonderful marketing strategy and platform through working with those organizations and having volunteered with them for, almost a decade. Being able to really harness that relationship was very helpful for me.
So essentially, you reached out to these different organizations, and you're like, hey, anything above this certain price point, that's all your profits. And then they were essentially selling it on your behalf.
Exactly. So I'd sell them kind of bulk copies of the book, and they'd sell it on my behalf, and they'd also pocket and keep the money for their organization, for their own fundraising and whatever they wanted to do with that money. I didn't say, oh, you can only spend it on this. I said, whatever you get in addition to the cost that I'm selling it to you for, you get to keep on your own terms and do whatever you guys want with for the fundraising and for raising money for your organization.
Well, and this clearly worked, because we were talking prior to the show, your book has sold 50,000 copies, and that was through a lot of these relationships.
It was. And I mean, there were some, when I did the media appearances and whatnot, every media appearance I'd have anywhere from, depending on small local media in a small town, it'd be anywhere from 50 book sales that day within the hour to, I think the most I ever got was a couple thousand on a bigger media channel, and that was kind of in one day. And that was wonderful, but one of the biggest things I learned for my own marketing strategy, if you want to sell more copies of your book, I learned to not rely 100% on the individual consumer, to really branch out, and bulk book sales is really where I benefited, and really where I was able to get to the numbers that I was with the amount that I sold. And it was a win-win for everybody. I was happy to sell that amount of copies. I was happy to, be able to say I'm a best-selling author. And I was also happy that I was able to help those organizations raise more money for creating awareness and all the goals of the mission of their organization.
Well, it also sounds like other opportunities probably presented themselves as well, with doing public speaking, book signings, and different things with those organizations and through the people that they sold the books to.
Absolutely. I do mental health first aid instruction, so I'm an instructor for it, and I certify people. And then, I got an opportunity through a Canadian mental health organization to be sponsored to get first aid certified. So they got me through that. They endorsed me. They wanted me to do that. And then getting certified in Canada and the U.S. to be able to teach it was kind of one thing that came out of that. And it was just really awesome, the opportunities and being able to show, that, like you said, that I can speak, to inspirational, I can do training, all that kind of stuff. So it was really a very helpful platform for getting my name out there.
And the fact that you did this yourself, you did this as a self-published author. You didn't do this with any help from a hybrid, traditional publishing, anyone. I mean, you did this on your own.
Yeah, I did. And I was I think that that one thing that really worked in my favor is from a very young age, I lost one of my best friends to suicide. That's not the good part. The good part is that I got involved with the mental health organizations at a very young age when I lost him. And since then, I have been fundraising every year for them. I've been volunteering every year for them. And I've been really, dedicating a lot of my own, it's a passion for me, dedicating my own time and energy to help other people create awareness for mental illness and disabilities is a huge passion. And through a passion, came something great. So, I put in a lot, and then I ended up, and I didn't expect it, but when the time came that I said, hey, are you interested in, making some money for your organization and at the same time promoting my book? And all of them were on board that I contacted that I was close with. It really came back the time that I had spent in helping and volunteering for the organization. And like I said, I didn't initially get involved in the organization with a greater goal 10 years down the road to have that. But it was really great that those organizations confided in me and were able to do that with me.
Well, it's definitely a win-win. You got to give back, you got to help organizations, you got to share your story, and you also got to make it a little bit monetarily. So if you don't mind me asking, what was typically your profit margin? I'm assuming probably no more than a couple of dollars a book, but when you sell that many books, it adds up pretty quick.
Absolutely. It was a really great profit margin. That was, the organizations, that really happened actually very quickly. The bulk of the book sales happened, mostly over, I'd say, a year after it published. And then it's been a lot of consumer based and the odd. So when I do speaking engagements now, I do offer, about a 40% discount for bulk copies to organizations. So I, ask whenever I do engagements, are you interested in purchasing bulk books? And some are, some aren't. So I still do the bulk book sales. There's not, I still get consumer sales that are kind of residual, but I don't, more focusing on pre-selling and working on the second book as well. But the profit margin was really wonderful. I'm hoping that it's similar with the second book as well.
Well, and the best part is you got to help organizations that you're passionate about. And I think that's the best part where, you can still make a little bit of money, but the main thing is you get to help other people and help organizations that you're passionate about. So I think that's wonderful.
Absolutely. And initially I didn't, my purpose for writing the book at first wasn't monetary like it. Initially, when I got involved in the mental health field, I actually just started volunteering, and I wrote the book so I could help other people and make other people, realize that they're not alone and help them understand that they're not broken, they don't need to be fixed. It doesn't mean they don't need to manage, but helping other people realize that. And then, it was very shortly after I started volunteering, and I did a couple of free donated events telling my story because I was asked, when I lost Matt, and telling my story. And I never actually expected this to be a career for me when I lost Matt and started into it. And then I realized after the first couple of speeches, I went, you know what, I want to be doing this for the rest of my life. And so the career component of it came after the passion. And so it's really it doesn't feel like work, it just really doesn't. And I believe that if you love what you do, the money will follow and you'll be able to make your way as long as you do what you love.
I totally agree with you. In fact, it was actually around this time 8 years ago, I had a really bad health crisis. I was near 340 pounds. I was borderline type 2 diabetic, right on that edge, and high blood pressure. My doctor said, if I don't get my act together, I'm dead in 5 years. So long story short, lost a bunch of weight. I've managed to keep the weight off over these past 8 years. And I had this idea for this book stuck in my head for 4 years that I finally got out a few years later. And that was my first book called Eat Less and Move More. And all I wanted to do with that book, I didn't care if I made a dime. What I wanted to do was to share my story and share the struggles and also share the triumphs. But the main thing is if I can help one person with that book, then it's totally worthwhile. And the crazy thing is that was 13 books ago. I've done 14 books now. We have a full publishing company.
Yeah.
But the best part is now I have the privilege to have the opportunity to help other people share their story and to share their testimony. And I just love that. And I absolutely just love what you've done as well, because you've taken your love and your passion, and you've been able to develop this book, and you've been able to help all these organizations. And that's how it works. I mean, karma is a beautiful thing. I was in Maui last month and spent 17 days there. One of my friends over there, he was talking about Pono, where giving back, and you don't expect beautiful things to come back, but it always works that way. You give, you help others, it's always going to come back in a great way. And just not to have the expectation, but it's typically how it works.
Exactly. And then when you get good karma coming back to you after, doing the things that you have and loving it and not expecting anything, it's just this really authentic, incredible feeling when that good karma comes back to you. It just feels so good, and you know so much that you're in the right place in your life, that you're doing the right thing, and that this is kind of what you were made to do. So I feel like that's me. I started, and same thing as you, if I could help one person, not go through what I went through with mental illness and Tourette syndrome and my disabilities, heck, I would pour my heart and my soul into this book just to help one person. And I'll do these speaking things just to help one person. And it really, I feel very blessed to be able to do what I love every day, and for it to be my career. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better life in that way.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
I actually don't have one favorite book, because I read quite a bit. I love self-development books. I love Oprah. I love, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra. But one book that really stood out. So when I was going through all my struggles, and after when I was 19, I had a miscarriage from an unexpected pregnancy at 4 months, and then I had a suicide attempt, and I was at, absolute rock bottom. The first book that I ever read was by Louise Hay, and it's called I Can Do It. And it's this teeny little thing. It's about 20 pages long, and it's just basically talking yourself up. And that is the first book where I realized, I might actually be worthwhile. And so ever since then, I've had so many favorite books. I can't just list one, unfortunately. And it's just been really incredible to be able to see and read other people's knowledge and insight to life, because I've kind of formed my life out of a little piece of everything that I've read that's really stuck with me. And, I really love Dr. Wayne Dyer too. His Excuses Be Gone is also a really great book. The Universe, I think it's called Universe. You Are the Universe by Deepak Chopra is also a really great book. I love the self-development, universe, energy type books, just because they're so positive and it makes you feel so good about yourself and like you're worthwhile.
Excellent. And for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
I actually thought about that. Can I have two?
Sure, why not?
So the first one is the only limits that we have are the limits that we give ourselves, and that's by Dr. Wayne Dyer. The other one is one that I've told myself. Now, I don't know if anybody else has said it before me. I'm sure they have. But the other one that's my absolute favorite is the only true failure is actually completely giving up.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite quotes because they just inspire me to be myself and inspire me to be other people. And if something is not going my way, instead of feeling bad about it or instead of putting negative energy out there, I try to do something about it, and I ask for help, and I'm just, open and, giving good energy and giving good things.
Well, Brett, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. It was great to be on the show. I appreciate the opportunity. People can find me on my website at brettspeaks.com. Also, my social media handles on Facebook and Twitter are at brettspeaksnow.
Well, Brett, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you again.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.